Brian, I feel like a little kid on Christmas morning, and there are presents all around me, and I'm grabbing this one and ripping it open. And should I open the biggest one first or the littlest one first? Or I, holy, I just can't even imagine. What are you thinking?
Yeah, it was a great Tesla earnings call. Everything was good. It's the kind of thing where you know that if everything did go right, they could achieve these kind of things. But it was so long since we've had all the execution and results come together. But now it's all happening, and not only that, all the guidance, everything was good.
Yeah, this
So
is
yeah,
kind of what we were hoping for on 1010
yeah,
and then some. Like all of the
right,
everybody talked about, yeah, I was talking all about expectations and unmet expectations. That's what
yeah,
everybody talked about the day after 1010. And
mhm,
yet I don't think anybody expected on 1010 to get as much as we just got.
right, right.
It's like we
Yeah,
got the whole pie.
yeah. Everything came through great. And also like how they did it. They beat by nearly 20%, 18% on EPS.
Yeah.
And it was not just that they did it, it was like how they did it. It was like, oh, okay, we cut costs. We did all these other things. So it's like landing the dismount, but like with a quadruple flip or whatever. It's just like everything was just like masterful getting to that point. And it was just so like all the stuff that you're like hoping to have. It's like it's all here now and it's going to keep going. So,
Yeah. Yeah. It's like this
yeah,
is just the very beginning. This is
right.
the foundation stone, and it's
Yeah.
only going to build up from here. There's like nothing in the way, nothing at all in the way. I mean,
Yeah.
even the conversation around Robotaxi and how it's going to start next year and blah, blah, blah. We'll talk so much more about that. But even that conversation, if that didn't happen, next
Yeah.
year would still be bananas.
Right. Right. Yeah.
All right, so there's a lot to talk about. I'm going to give you first up. So what was the number one thing that just, that if you went home and told your wife or your kids or whatever that you just watched it, what would be the first thing you'd tell them?
Well, the foundation thing for people who like casual followers of the stock is that basically we almost got to 20% margin, got 19.8%. It was done with some credits, but it was 19.8%. And then they said next year on vehicles, 50%, although there was some hedging on that with Elon in the call saying 20 to 30%. But
Right,
basically getting back to serious growth,
right,
30% growth and 20% margin um, is is what they were saying. The story was gone. All the Tesla Q, okay, no more growth and whatever. But it's like margins coming back. And then if you're getting 30% growth, will easily beat the 20% margin.
right,
So the 20% margin and getting to 30% growth, 50% growth per year, that Tesla is basically back.
right. And he did say that in order to get to that 20 to 30% growth, it's going to take the new vehicle, whatever it is, the less expensive vehicle. It got a little confusing on that one, Brian.
Hmm.
I listened to Rob Maurer. He was confused. I think there's still confusion, and maybe that's intentional because he doesn't
Hmm.
want to Osborne between now and the first quarter or whenever it'll get announced. But
Yeah.
is that new vehicle going to be the hatchback we've all been talking about?
Hmm.
That will be just a smaller version of the Model X, I mean Model Y rather,
Hmm.
with less accoutrement.
Yeah.
And will it only be a $37,000 vehicle that after the $7,500 tax credit is 2950?
Hmm.
But what if, or 29.5, but what if the tax credit goes away in a Trump administration? Would they then lower the cost to 29.5? So I mean, there's a bunch of questions around that vehicle, but I suspect they don't want us to know.
Right. Although Sandy Monroe, in one of his videos, after he was at Robotaxi Day,
Okay.
he was saying that getting that vehicle down below 30, he said that vehicle was the cheaper vehicle. He said that that vehicle was a cheaper vehicle. He said that getting it under $30,000 would be, he said, easy peasy.
Oh,
And then he said, removing the steering wheel and steering column, all those parts, he said, $400 and a bit.
right.
And then removing the two doors and the rear seat, whatever. I suspect that if you don't have a full robotaxi in your vehicle, that you would have the second row seats. You could
Right.
have a two-door vehicle and hop in to get into the rear seat, like a Honda Civic or something like that, might have that kind of arrangement where you have the back seat, but you remove two doors, and then you could, if you had less luggage room, you could squeeze in and get four seats into that vehicle.
Right.
So Sandy Monroe thinks that that basically is the vehicle. So that, but then we'll again have to find out. Again, in terms of like, do we know? We don't know.
Right.
Yeah. So the confusion is there, and they specifically didn't answer. Um, but some of the things we do know is that if you're going to get to a large number of vehicles next year, 2.5 million, 2.7 million,
Right.
um, I think 2.5 is whatever you're sandbagging, then you have to remember I was saying in our last video talking about getting to um, a double or something like that, the earnings next year, that we need to have 50,000 a month, right? Or even more, like maybe 200,000 a quarter. So
Right.
70,000 a month is what we need to have for the new vehicle. I think that was pretty much what they were saying there. Like we go 20 to 30%. If it's Q2, have three quarters ramped, right? So you start in Q1 and then you get fully ramped Q2, 200,000 per quarter, that gets you to, that 20, 30% kind of
Gotcha.
thing, especially because so, when I say 20, 30%, it's like 20% is if I start in Q2, get fully ramped Q3, then I get to 20%, right? In terms of like more vehicles. So that's how I heard what Elon was saying.
Now
Because
he,
he's like,
right.
yeah,
He also said that he expects the Model 3. He didn't say this specifically, but what was implied was he expects Model 2, Model 3 and Model Y sales to increase because of FSD. So
right.
we talked about that as well, that once FSD is a thing,
Yeah.
that folks are going to be more inclined to buy the Model 3 and the Model Y. So that will increase the number of those sales as well. And of course, we know there's going to be an increase in Cybertruck sales just because they're going to be making more of them.
Right. And the FSD part that they were talking about, three orders of magnitude improvement. So 1,000 times, 1,000 times
during
on,
during this year, from the beginning, from January to December, and then do it again next year.
and doing it next year. Right. So basically it's like virtually perfected driving. And basically the middle of next year is when they surpass human driving.
Right,
Right.
right.
So if you hit those targets in terms of like how many people will adopt it, licensing and stuff like that, they're basically saying we will fully solve Robotaxi next year. And
Right.
by the middle of next year, it'll be better than human. So if it's better than human, getting the permission, the licenses to do things,
Yeah.
that'll be like easy peasy again. It's just like if you're that good, then everything's good. And then they also said that we'll replace if we can't squeeze it onto hardware 3, we'll give you a free replacement of whatever the chip is.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
Oh, that was huge. That was
right,
huge.
right,
Yeah, it's not going to move the stock, but it
yeah,
just eliminated the bear story on that. That's
right,
just gone now.
right,
And
right.
by the way, I am going to take a little lap here, a
Mhm.
little victory lap, because
Mhm.
I've been talking about that in all of the, I don't know what you said, Brian, but I
Yeah,
know that pretty much all my co-hosts, almost
yeah.
everybody said, no, Randy, that'll be too expensive. That will not be practical, blah, blah, blah. And I'm going, no, if it's going to go in a robo-taxi, then
Yeah.
they're going to make the money back on that replacement in no time. So why
And
wouldn't,
and the thing is that if you're going to replace the hardware 3 chip,
yeah,
why would you go just for like a bare kind of hardware 4 chip?
yeah,
You're
yeah,
going to go for a hardware 5 chip that can
right,
also do the distributed computing thing.
right, right.
And the thing is, you may then also replace your hardware 4 chip. Like everyone should go to hardware 5, AI 5 chips because it's like not only do you make the money 60 hours, 70 hours doing Robotaxi,
Right.
but you use the next 90 hours, 100
Right.
hours on the compute. And again, you make the money back. So
Right.
why wouldn't you say, okay, I got this thing, I'm going to upgrade you
Yeah.
because we'll both make more money. It's like $1,000 or $2,000, and then we'll make $2,000, $5,000 a year, you know, and so make the money back right away. So getting that hardware upgrade and then actually even sometimes continuing to upgrade. Because if I make the chip
Yeah,
um, hardware 8 1,000 times better,
right.
right? And more energy efficient and stuff like that, they would say, yeah, yeah, we're making money on this thing. We're going to
Pull it
keep
out, put
improving.
it in.
We're
Yeah,
going to
right.
pop it back in. Yeah. Because it's like it's more money for all of us.
Yeah,
So yeah. So the so that I think is the obvious move to make. And basically they've just told us that will end up being the plan. Where it's like because it's people viewing it as a cost is wrong. Just like they say, okay, we'll the difference between us and dealer model is that they make money on the maintenance. It's
right.
like if if not, this is no longer a cost. This is a revenue generation thing. We make money on that, so of course
Yeah,
we're going to upgrade it.
yeah,
You're our partner
right.
for the vehicles and for the chips for the AI. So we'll upgrade that. We'll
Yeah,
upgrade the humanoid bot. We'll upgrade this because they're all revenue generating things. So it's just like if I have um, vending machines, right? And they're making me, I own the vending machine and it's paying me $1,000
right.
a month, and then I upgrade it so I can make $2,000 a month. It's like, yeah, I'm not gonna like let it go to crap. I'm gonna keep
Right.
upgrading, and improving it because I'm making more and more money.
Right.
So yeah, so it's yeah,
So
again, positive, yeah.
putting aside fears that I might become insufferable, I'm going to take a second victory lap.
Yeah.
And that would be they've got vehicles in the field right now in San
Mhm.
Francisco or up in the Bay Area, taking
Mhm.
employees to and from work. I wonder who suggested such a thing. I didn't mention employees. And that they got those currently have supervised drivers, but they're treating them like they're cabs so that they're getting experience with regard to the app. I don't know who would have suggested such a thing. And that if necessary, based on regulations, they'll put supervised drivers behind the wheel next year as they're trying to get approvals for Texas and California. So
Mhm.
I think that's always made so much sense to me. But most
Mhm.
people are, no, Elon just said one day you'll just completely, it'll be it'll be the great come and get it day,
Mhm.
and everybody will get rich. But
Mhm.
no, there's a process, and they're in the
Mhm.
middle of this process. And I think that again, such clarity. I loved the clarity.
Right, right. And the thing is, this previous this network of the employees riding around in, it's basically because the employees were testing version 12 some
Right,
months before we got it. So
right,
now they're testing version 13. When we get version 13, which could be in like a week, then they're already on to 13.1, 13.2, or
or
14
14. Right,
or 14, right? And if the improvement rate is so fast, because if they're gonna go 1,000 times,
right,
that means you're pretty much
100 times a
dub
month.
you're doubling every month.
Right,
You're doubling every month, right?
right,
Because every month you're doubling. So then they're basically saying that the test driving experience 2 months ahead
right,
is basically Robotaxi,
right.
right? Because they're like we're doing supervised Robotaxi with the driver. So they basically at any point in the next 2 months
Mhm.
they can go and now here's
Here it is.
here it is. Yeah. And it could be, and if it's 13, the one that they used it at in
Right.
in Robotaxi Day, and now they're using it, in the field, right? Then it's pretty much ready to go, right?
Uh,
So
so my number one takeaway from
mm,
this day
mm,
was that the other car companies are not going to need any laxatives tonight.
yeah, yeah,
Their systems are going to be completely clean.
yeah,
They're going to, I mean, holy mackerel, they must be. I mean, the clarity of the plan.
yeah.
Okay, let me just move to this little thing I put up on X and I sent to you. In
Mhm.
terms of where the profits are coming from, just what we just saw. Again, I've been talking about this for months. Here are 11 places. I only thought of 10 of them, and then they threw in the 11th one during the call. And that is number one, the costs are dropping from just regular iterations and improvements. We know that. Number two, the battery costs are dropping from the suppliers. We know that because lithium is down, and we know that there's plenty of capacity. Number three, they said the battery costs are dropping from in-house production to the point where they're going the landed cost, they're this close to the landed cost in California or Texas being less than the landed cost of a CATL battery coming from China.
Yeah.
So, and then they said, we've got plenty of room. We got plenty of ideas of how we're going to get it even lower than that. So that's a massive drop.
Hmm.
And you've got the battery costs dropping from the IRA money. The
Hmm.
more batteries you make, the more $45 as you get per kilowatt hour. And then you've got improved margins on the Cybertruck ramp because they're saying it's marginally profitable now. And most people weren't expecting it to be marginally profitable till the end of the year. So they
Hmm.
beat that by at least a quarter. Then you've got the improved margins of the Highland ramp because that started, as a brand new ramp at the beginning of the year. Cost cuttings from the layoffs. They talked about it on the overhead side, but there was also a bunch of people laid off on the manufacturing side. Then you got more revenues from the FSD uptake because it's improving, so you're getting more of an uptake. I mean, more uptakes, and then you also have more revenues from the fact that it is closer to being fully what do you call it, complete.
Hmm.
And so
Yeah.
you're taking 70% or 60, you might be taking 80, whatever it is. So you're getting those profits, and then you're getting more revenues, possibly. Oh, I've said that already. More revenues from FSD on the Cybertruck. They mentioned that one
Hmm.
as an important number. And then more revenue, more profit because the freight has gotten cheaper.
Hmm.
Eventually, I suppose they'll be using their own semi-trucks,
Semi-truck.
most of the freight, which should save them a whole bunch of other money. If I'm a if I'm a competitor,
Mm-hmm.
and I also know that Optimus is coming to their factories,
Yeah.
I'm a competitor. I'm looking at this. I'm going, what am I supposed to do?
And the other thing was the energy megapack thing. So they said 200 per week. So that
Yes,
means they're at the full 40 gigawatt hours. It
right,
was 10,000 per year.
right,
And they also said that they would get 20 gigawatt hours run rate. So basically one of the lines of the equivalent of two lines in Lathrop. And there's four lines that we know that they could do in Shanghai for
right.
that thing. So I'm thinking a simple thing would be one line Q1, one line Q2, one line Q3,
Yeah,
one line Q4, and then you get to that 80
100%
gigawatt
back.
hours, 120 gigawatt hours for the full thing. And then you would need to then start up another factory someplace. And also you may be sandbagging your 20 gigawatt hour thing. So
Yeah.
that would
Based on him saying they want to get to multiple terawatt hours, I think we're going
multi-hour.
to be talking about an announcement. Maybe they won't announce it. Maybe they'll just build it. I think you got to be talking about one or more additional factories next year because he's no longer talking about 1 terawatt hour. He's talking about multiple terawatt hours by Tesla.
Right,
Start thinking about the dollars involved in that.
right, right now. And they had more net income. They had like on the energy pack, they were like 30%, over 30% margin on the energy mega packs. And they had what else was there? Um, that so then if you have 20 gigawatt hours in Q1, that would be 15 gig or you for annualized. That's 15 gigawatt hours in that quarter. That'd be like double what they did in
Right,
Q3.
right.
Q4 probably will in the lumpiness thing probably goes up. It's a question of some revenue recognition stuff. But then I think averaging next year, you're looking at, 80 to 100 gigawatts. You're looking at that, what I said before, that basically that you could get to this $6 billion of net income per quarter
Yeah,
on this thing, $5 billion per quarter. It's just like huge numbers on that. And they had more net income this quarter than the previous quarter, even though they had 3 gigawatt hours less
right.
of production because the whole revenue recognition lumpiness stuff. So
Exactly.
yeah.
Yeah, and then what he also confirmed, which is something you've been talking about, which is because again, this channel, we go into depth, folks. Tell
Mm,
your friends. You're not going to hear this on other channels. You're not going to get that list of where all those different profit sources came from. And you're not going to get Brian Wong coming on and talking about it is going to be so easy to ramp Shanghai when you've already done Lathrop, and he just told us that he thinks it's going to be 1/4 ramped. I mean, producing, delivering 1/4 of the capacity of the factory in the first quarter after only building it at the end of the fourth quarter.
That's right. That's right. So it's yeah, very, very exciting on that. So you can make like you can make a 15 gigawatt hours, you could be looking at $1.52 billion of net income just from that quarter from
And not,
energy.
not mentioning the IRA money.
Yeah, not just IRA money. That's right. Yeah.
Right. Okay, so then you've got Cortex. So
Hmm.
I was surprised they brought it up. I guess it was one of the seven questions, or was it? No, I think
No, it wasn't. No,
no,
no, I don't
no.
think so.
Farragut brought it up. That's right.
Okay.
That's right. Pierre brought it up, and he said, "Well, what's going on with Cortex?" Well, there was also a video earlier today online showing that some of the fans are starting to turn, and there was another posting. I think it was Sawyer Merritt that said, "Yeah, it's operational." So we have been
Mhm.
talking about that, you and I even. So this could be just massive.
One thing on that, I think, page 8 or 10 or whatever, where they show the H100s being installed,
Yeah,
right? So you can see at the end where it goes from like 35,000 and heading toward 80,000, already at 65,000, right? That basically that was installing like, you know, 10,000, 20,000 chips per week. That whole, where they installed XAI, did it in
right.
19 days for the 100,000
That's
GPUs. It's like everything's going slowly, kind of like normal pace. We're kind of like taking, a year to install 30,000 GPUs, but then it just goes vertical, where
right,
it's like, where
right.
it's like now we install all these things, right?
Literally, it's
So
vertical.
practically vertical. So that massive install thing is the capability that Jensen Huang said was superhuman, that
Right.
they were able to install all these chips and get it all going. So um, for Tesla, they were working for a while from last year, getting to this year, slowly getting to 35,000. Like substantial, not slow improvements, but then suddenly they figured it all out. Everything just like everything came together for the whole company.
Right.
Everything came together on the AI side, on the building the data center side, and then it just goes boom, vertical. And the only reason they stopped out at 85,000 is that they're being prudent financially to not like, oh, we,
Uh,
go building way beyond what we need because it's like our real world AI is sufficient for this, at least for now.
right.
And so then but on the XAI side, because it's like there's no limit on super intelligence, they're going to be installing all these B200s, the new chips, which are 4 times better
Right.
than the H100s.
Right.
And they're going to NVIDIA starts building them in Q4.
Right.
So they'll have like 150,000, 200,000 B100s, of which the first one they're going to Microsoft OpenAI because they paid more for it. But then 500,000 will be made in Q1. So that's when XAI gets 300,000 of those, and then they will install them in a month.
Right.
And while Microsoft will take a year, so then they'll have 300,000. And then when you run that model, they will be 10 times better than the competition, even with their own 100,000 B100s. But then those ones won't be ready for a year. So they will have them installed, built, trained, tested, product released by the summer before the other guys can even get theirs running. So that is the advantage of this fast install thing
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
Tesla has and XAI has.
So the other thing that I thought would cause the other guys in the industry to kind of faint, if you
Mhm.
will, to be concerned, is that they got these margins, even with their 0%, 1% financing deals.
Right.
People have to keep in mind, and I was watching some of the people talking about this on X as well as online, and this is not coming out of cost. This is not showing up in cost of goods. The financing shows up in the average selling price. It reduces the average selling price by the amount that they have to pay the banks to pay down that interest rate. And so that amount comes out of the top line. But they were still able to get 20% margins while they
Right.
were doing it, or even take out the regulatory credits. They were still able to get whatever it was, 18.7 or something.
Yeah.
And they said, okay, we may not be able to get that done in the fourth quarter. We may not be able to hit those same margins again, except Elon pointed out 2 times, interest rates might come down.
Right.
And and interest rates right now are crazy. That's all I've been talking about for 3 days on my show, that we're still sitting here at 4.25 today on the 10 year. Now, the 10 year is not impacting the rates
Car
on
loans.
cars, but the 2 years, the 2 month, the 2 year, those are all, well, the 2 year is actually higher now, or lower now, but the 2 month and the 3 month, et cetera, those are higher.
Mhm.
So as those have been collapsing a little bit, though, they are collapsing. And if we do still get the Fed to do their 2 cuts, by the end of the year, we should be seeing some real relief from that.
Right. Right. So, yeah, so
What are the
that
car,
will reduce the
what are
cost.
they going to do? What are the car
So
companies?
that would be like basically give them a an increase of $1,000 to if it costs them like $3,000 whatever to do this deal, then if interest rate by the summer next year have come down by half,
Yeah,
then the cost for this 0% financing thing would go down to 1,500.
right.
And yeah, so
It's just crazy. Okay, so they said that no other EV companies in the world
are profitable.
profitable. And if it's a division of an EV company or a division of another company, that none of those are profitable either.
Right.
And so by saying that, he was implying that BYD is not.
Mhm.
And the way I suppose he gets to that is that they do have a hybrid part, and they do have their battery part, and they
Mhm.
make buses and some other things as well. So they have
Mhm.
a lot of other, irons in the fire, and somehow he's friends with those guys over there. And
Mhm.
the financials, it's a public company, so their financials are available, but apparently he believes that their BEV department is not making money. I thought that was pretty wild.
Right. I think that was been pretty clear that that had not been proper. Like various other YouTubers have analyzed that over the years and said that they weren't making money. Because you just kind of look at their history before they did BEVs, they're kind of making their profit and money from their cell phone parts, from batteries, and from their ICE vehicles. And then they drop the ICE vehicles and just only have hybrid. Hybrid has been growing. So then you just look at the tracking and it's like, yeah, they're probably losing money on the electric car part.
Yeah, yeah. Let's see. They already did I miss it was sometimes it's hard to understand the one I don't remember his name, the one guy who was speaking. Um I thought I heard him say that they already have 1 million miles of data from the Smart Summit. Is that what
Okay.
he said?
I didn't hear that part of it.
He
I
said he
was
had 1 million miles, and he said it was smart, but I couldn't quite pick that up. But that would be pretty wild if they've already got that much data on Smart Summit, which everybody, I didn't think of this. Other people told me this, and I was like, oh wow, that's interesting. Smart Summit is kind of like the walking before the running of full self-driving.
right. It's a short range full self-driving. So
Right. Short
basically,
range is
there's
slow.
no driver,
Yeah.
and then you're calling the car to you.
Right.
And there seem to be some statements around there about doing that more, which again is like if you were expanding it out, okay, it can operate for 200 yards or something
Right.
like that, right? That if you then keep expanding that 1,000 yards, whatever, you can get to, summon and dispatch, where it's
Right.
like it comes to me 1,000 yards, it moves me 1,000 yards, that you're basically, yeah, training wheels or just beginning to do your marathon of things that basically you can um, have a more efficient Uber by saying, okay, I'm just calling my car to me. Like I'm an Uber driver. I'm calling my car to me. I'm sending my car away. I don't have to like hand off directly to the next driver,
Right.
kind of thing. Yeah.
Well, and then speaking of hands,
Mhm.
says you said hands off. Get it?
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Anyway, he didn't spend very much time talking about Optimus, but he did say that they were trying what they were basically trying to do at the 1010, which people were wondering what was the purpose of Optimus at the 1010, and it was basically dexterity and showing that the Optimi could involve themselves in a crowd situation.
Mhm.
And I think they accomplished both of those things very well. And
Right.
he did say that those that were there that day apparently did not have the new forearm and hand, but and then he got cut off or got start, cut himself off or whatever, and he never finished his sentence about when uh, that new hand and arm are going to be ready to produce.
Well, the thing is, if these Robotaxi software is improving so fast,
Right.
1,000 times and that kind of thing, then the speed of the Optimus software, like the hardware, is going to be good enough because you can do like a really crude hardware. Like there's some Stanford guys, three students who got a off-the-shelf pincer-like hand
Right.
to cook a three-course meal, right? And do a bunch of other stuff. They did some of that with remote operation, where they're like acting like a puppeteer to make this
Right.
stuff work. But the point being, the hardware doesn't have to be that good. The software is the thing. So if the software is improving at 1,000 times a
Right.
year or something crazy like that, then it will be very useful, right? The fact that they get the hardware perfected is, I think, and what they've already shown is that's a done deal, right? Like the fact that they were, handing out drinks, handing out desserts, doing all that stuff at the event, if they say, oh, well, it's teleoperated, that just means if the software is there, it will all work perfectly. So.
Right. So I don't know if you remember what the number is because they did mention that the units per hour. Oh, let me go back to Optimus for 1 minute. He did say that he believes that they are far ahead of all, far. He didn't say a little ahead, far ahead of all the competition.
Right.
And of course, I've believed that all along. And he did say that in saying that, he was talking about the combination that between their inference chip, their ability to manufacture, and their hard
Hardware capability,
software,
hardware
blah, blah, blah,
capability.
that they're far ahead. So it might be that others are doing well in one category and they're, but combined total, they're far ahead. I had a big argument the other day with somebody that was saying, I don't care if the TAM is infinite. Oh, I guess it was no, it was what's his name? It was uh, Brett. He,
Okay.
he's who I was having the argument with, and he was saying,
Yeah.
I don't care what the TAM is on the robot. He says, I want to
Hmm.
be number one.
Hmm.
It's like, no, Brett. On this one, unlike anything else in history, the TAM is infinite, and if you're number two, you will have more money to spend than anybody probably since Solomon or something.
Right. Hmm.
So, all right. Here's the one I was going to ask you though. He said, and the unbox method will be 5 orders of magnitude faster
Five
than
times better.
five
Half the
times
magnitude. Half the
half
magnitude. Yeah.
half a
5 times
mag.
better.
I'm sorry, half a magnitude better, 5 times better than any car manufacturer in the world right now in terms of throughput. But I couldn't remember what the next best is after Tesla, which is already at 30 seconds.
So what the way I understood this to be is that I already knew that when you go to giant leg unbox is basically giant Legos.
Right,
Okay. So
right,
instead of making one car all at once, taking 10 hours
right.
for Tesla, beginning to end,
Right.
Volkswagen 20 hours, 20, 30 hours, beginning to end. Like I start at the beginning of the factory, when it comes out the other side complete,
Mhm.
it's 10 hours for Tesla, and maybe it's down to 8 hours in Shanghai, something like that. And every 30 seconds the car is coming out, right?
Right,
So if I go giant Legos, then I build the pieces. So I break the car up into 8 pieces.
right,
Each piece takes me an hour,
right,
and then I get the whole thing done in 1 hour. And so I get the throughput up to those levels. So they're saying only 5 times better, even though it's like 10 pieces, because some part of it may take 2 hours
right,
instead of one, right? And they also want to be conservative. That's what I
right.
interpret that because their process of going to giant Legos, which is involves a lot of technology, like
Sure.
having the 48-volt architecture, secure by wire, all that kind of stuff. So they're basically saying that they will get fully there. The interesting question, so when they said 2 million cars to
Yes.
4 million cars,
Right,
right? If you have a 5 times improvement, if I make 500,000 cars in a unit for my regular old gigafactory,
right,
like Texas and Berlin,
right,
right? If I have the new process, my new unit is about like 2.5 million, 2 million if I'm conservative, right? So they're basically saying before we were talking about, okay, we're going to make a new factory, make 500,000 vehicles. 2 factories, kind of like in Shanghai, where I got a Model 3 factory and a Model Y factory, combined, they're making 1 million,
Yeah.
right? Then every one of those factories, when you get to Unbox giant Lego process, is 2 million. So
Wow.
that means we'll do that once for one version of Model Y. But then if we get, to the equivalent of 1 million vehicles now, that'd be 4 million vehicles, 5 million vehicles
Right.
for the new process.
Right.
And then if I convert all my old factories eventually to this old process, then it's like Shanghai is two of that. That's 4 million cars in Shanghai. That's 2 million cars in Texas, 2 million cars in Berlin, before we get some expansion of more lines and blah blah blah. And so you could get to the 20 million vehicle level. What was 4 million vehicles becomes 20 million vehicles because you've upgraded all your factories by 4x, 5x in terms of capability. So that is it was just 4 million, I think, is just the beginning. Again, they're not like saying, because they said 5 times improvement. 4 million vehicles is like 1,800,000 vehicles now. So it's again, they're actually sandbagging that in my interpretation.
Okay. All right. And then on semi, he said that the pilot line for the new factory. So, the factory's almost done. I
Mhm.
mean, I'm sitting here talking to Brian White the other day. Like, what, Brian, why is it going to take until 2025 before they start popping these babies out? Well, apparently, there will be a pilot line later this year. He didn't say late this year. He said later this year. So I guess, whenever the walls are up and they're ready to be able to put in the equipment, they'll start popping up
I'm not
some.
sure what they mean by pilot line because Heinrich Venigler, who's all over the semi truck stuff, he's a YouTuber and on X, putting video of that thing being built. He talked about serialized production. So instead of hand building 100 per year, 200 per year, he's about serialized production where you make like 1,000, 2,000, or 500 to 1,000, some level per year. So we don't know if they were talking about like the serialized production line versus the real pilot
Yeah.
production line. So
Okay.
then there's a few different kinds of power. Like a pilot production line might be the equivalent of Cato Road for batteries, where you can get to 10 gigawatt hours instead of
Right.
100, 200 gigawatt hours, right? Where you get to like a few thousand vehicles. So I would be reluctant to say that that was a true
Mm,
major production line. I would think probably it wouldn't be, and that also the when you're making lots of semi trucks, you have to make a lot of supercharging, mega charging stations,
right.
either
Yeah.
private ones for your Pepsi or whatever. So there's stuff that has to happen to make those really useful. Um, you can modify that some by taking two or four supercharging spots and
Mhm.
converting them to a mega charger.
Right.
But we have not seen that happen.
Right.
So um, in order for them to make a lot of semi trucks that have to be impactful, they have to make mega charging um, scaled up.
Right.
So we have to see that. Otherwise, there's no way to really get them
So we should
out.
start seeing that. We should start seeing that fairly soon. We should start seeing some actual deployment, some actual either deploying into existing locations or deploying into new locations or deploying into existing
Public
truck
charging areas,
truck
yeah,
truck truck, depots or whatever. So we
right.
should start to see that. That should be some evidence. But he did, last he said it would be 40,000 semi trucks in 2026.
Right.
So,
But the huge thing was he said that it's testing it with FSD.
right.
It's going to
That
be
was big.
a self-driving truck. He said initially the trucks with the driving assist will be so helpful to the existing drivers.
Right.
They'll be very comfortable. They won't get tired because basically they'll just be virtually passengers on,
Right.
especially on highway drive. It's like
Right.
they're just there making sure that, for
Nothing.
regulatory purposes, that they're watching this vehicle.
Right.
And then they won't be able to have the time, where they like drive for 10 hours because there's a bunch of regulations around that, which I'm not sure that necessarily the same in China, Asia,
Mm,
Europe, that
mm,
kind of thing. So the if it becomes easier for them to drive really long distances because you're basically just a passenger riding
Right.
along,
Right.
then how does that end up working in that halfway state for 2 years,
Yeah. Yeah.
or for a year? How does that work? I'm not sure how that happens.
And he
But
says,
full robo trucking is coming. It's I think 2026 you'll have it full robo
and he
trucking.
says, and he says there's ridiculous demand because
Right.
who wouldn't want one? They have
Yeah.
to, they'll be at a competitive disadvantage. Let's see. Yeah, that's pretty much my list. Did I miss anything?
So um let's see. Energy FSD. So I think that the main thing is FSD, going back to that, is that if you get it like 1,000 times better for intervention, that basically over the course of next year, like human driving equivalent passed in the middle of next year, that all of the um, minimalist, cautious versions of Robotaxi are out the window because basically you've solved it. You
Right.
solved that. You solved robo trucking. It's way safer and better than human. All the deals of like when does some China licensing Uber it's like they will be lining up to do that deal. So when does the first deal get announced? If this week and next month you have version 13 5 to 6 times better. So people were wondering, 5 to 6 times better than 12.3 or 5 to 6 times better than 12.5. Now they said 5 to 6 times better than 12.5, right?
Right.
12.56. So that means that you know, I think licensing deals have to happen in the next 2, 3 months. 4680s, we didn't talk about that. The basically that was ramping and getting the better version, so getting up to hundreds of gigawatt hours. So it's again pretty much everything that we talked about in terms of like cars, um, um, Megapacks, 4680s, FSD, um, the Dojo stuff. Like
Every
everything's they're hitting on all cylinders.
yeah.
So yeah,
And so I was thinking to myself, everybody always talks about a company having, now I'm talking about for the last 2 years, people
yeah,
talk about companies, having their chat GPT moment. Well,
yeah,
I think that should change. I think that we should now be talking about companies having their Mechazilla moment.
yeah.
I mean, I know that only 5% of the population probably knows what Mechazilla is and realizes that they just caught this rocket with chopsticks. But I think that was technologically maybe a bigger deal. You're a scientist. Was it harder to do Mechazilla or was it harder to do the ChatGPT moment?
Um, I think the Mechazilla one is tougher because no one else is doing Mechazilla, no one even close. They're all like decades away, while ChatGPT, there's like 5, 10 companies who've done it. Like you have XAI did it, and a year later you have
Yeah,
Anthropic, you
yeah,
have
yeah. 10 years from now, nobody will have caught a rocket.
right, right. No one else has caught a rocket. Yeah.
Not a
Yeah.
chance.
And also it pretty much opened up space. So in the call, he's talking about Kardashev levels. All the so people don't know Kardashev level one,
I
two, and
don't know
three.
what that is. Tell me about that.
So it's a Russian who came up with it. So basically, it's like all the solar energy that's hitting the Earth
Right.
is Kardashev level one.
I see.
So that is actually like at 10,000 times more energy than we currently have, right? So it's basically all the sun's energy. You just say, okay, how much energy is that? That's if a civilization could use all of that, that's Kardashev level one.
Okay.
Kardashev level two is using all the energy of the sun, which is you've heard of the Dyson sphere?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
So Dyson sphere, Freeman Dyson, physicist who worked on nuclear bombs and other stuff and nuclear rockets, he talked about Dyson sphere, where I cover, like everything in the orbit of the Earth, the Earth's orbit, so 96 million miles from the sun. You put up solar collection, not just in the ring around the thing, but the sphere
Right,
around the sun. So you're
right.
collecting all the energy.
All the energy.
So and then that's 10 billion times more
I
than the
see.
power that's hitting the Earth, right? So
Okay.
then if you say there's 100 billion stars,
Yeah,
there or 500 billion stars in the galaxy, if I'm collecting all the power of all the stars in the galaxy, that's level three.
I see. Okay.
So each level is going up by 10 billion to 100 billion times, right? So I have a different scale than that.
Okay.
So
Okay.
my scale is involves doubling
Okay.
because basically every time you double 10 times, that's 1,000 times,
Okay.
right? So then a billion times more is 30 doublings.
Mhm.
And then if you go to like 10 billion times, that's another three doublings. So 33 doublings for 10 billion
Yeah.
times.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then if you go to um, 100 billion times more, then that's 35. So between car share level one and car share level two, that's 33 doublings. Car share
Uh-huh.
level two to car share level three, that is 35 doublings,
Okay.
right? The reason I talk about doublings is that it can take, a, you know, right now, the history of civilization, we're still not even at car share level one. So
Right.
from caveman to now, or from apes to now, it's been a million years, we're not at car share level one. So it's kind of a very wide gap
Yeah.
between levels,
Yeah.
right? But a doubling, it's clear if I'm double you, like the double the per capita income or something like that, that level of difference is very clear. It's like, okay, between um, Mexico per capita income and US per capita income, there's like two doublings, right?
Okay.
Maybe three doublings,
Mhm.
right? So then that's clearly a clear distinction. I can see that this is a lot less than that,
Right.
right? And making that improvement, going from 2 million cars to 8 million cars, that's like uh, two doublings, right? That you're It's a entirely different company, right?
Right.
At 8 million
Right.
cars versus 2 million cars. So, and same thing for Megapacks. If I have one laser factory
Mhm.
versus having two laser factories and going from 40 gigawatts to 160, I go through two doublings. It's a huge difference.
Right.
So then I can then measure all along the way how much do I need to get to those terawatts,
I
which
see.
is like eight doublings, which is, if I'm growing at 50% per year, it's I can say, okay, it's going to happen in like 15 years. I'll get
Got
to
got
10
it.
doublings.
Yeah.
So it's something that's far more useful in real time as to how fast you're getting someplace, and it's um more practical because if I say, okay, I'm get to car share level one, even get to car share level one from zero point 0.7 is like 1,000 doublings, right? Or sorry, 1,000 times, which
Got
is like 10 doublings, right? So it's like it took us you know 25 years
right.
to double once, and then we've done three doublings since World War II, right? So so then to get to even car share level one at the pace of one doubling every 25 years, then you're looking at 250 years,
I see.
right? So how
Yeah.
practical a measurement
Yeah.
is that,
Yeah.
right? But we have done it three doublings since World War II, so that is something that is
Yeah.
not easy to do, but a far more practical.
And I remember you using this example with regard to the doubling of and I think Kathy Wood has talked about the doubling of the GDP uh, per year, the annual GDP, the doubling from less than 1% to 1%, then 1% to 2%, et cetera, and the
Right,
impact that will have if we do it again over this next 5 years. If we double again from roughly 3% to 6%, that will be just amazing. Yeah.
right. And then since the beginning of the Industrial Revolution, so from about 1800 something like that, the world economy had increased 200 times. So that is about like uh, eight eight doublings,
We doubled.
eight doublings to get to that point.
Right.
So that is something where if we say the AI revolution, the beginning of the AI
All right.
revolution, or the automation thing is something that is as impactful as the industrial revolution, the
Right.
stuff that coming from Unbox process and human bot, then you can say, okay, we could see that kind of industrial revolution type impact
Right.
from getting to like 10 billion bots, right? Or 100 billion bots. Then the the world changing, and if we do that faster than we did the industrial revolution, which gigafactories, faster production, unbox process, you can see it happening in 20 to 30
For
years,
sure.
which goes to master plan part three that he was talking about.
Right.
Because so basically the stuff he was speculating about is the achieving these huge goals of 20 billion bots, human bots, all these factories having that factory production and getting these levels of increases. So he wasn't spoon feeding the analysts talking about, car to shift things, but he was talking about it because based on if we achieve 10 billion, 20 billion human bots and go
Right.
beyond that, and he said stuff with SpaceX and stuff like that, it's literally mapping out the complete going from now to like an a Star Trek Enterprise kind of level
Right.
technology. It's like we're going from here, and then when I have my city on Mars, we're really going to be living like a kind of version of Star Trek. No warp drive, but
Right.
everything else.
Yes.
But fleet the ships, all that kind of stuff. And basically he's thinking in those Kardashev scale that, he's thinking about Kardashev 1 and really thinking about Kardashev 2. And then we have a long room to go to Kardashev 3, but we'll be on the path, right?
I just,
So
I'm just thinking about whether I could pay my mortgage next month.
yeah,
So let's turn back to something that I know you care a lot about, and that
okay.
is the stock price.
Yes. Yes.
Oh, not that either one of us are going to sell anytime soon, but
Yeah.
from time to time, I know you might have
Yeah.
involved yourself in some margins, not margins rather, but
Call
some
options, yeah.
yes, some
Leaps.
leaps. So so far in the after hours, we're up 12%. That's not bad. It was down 2% today before. So this is a
Mhm.
10% overall gain for the
Yeah.
day. So what do we think is going to happen tomorrow? So let me set my boundaries.
Mhm.
I said a couple of weeks ago that the only thing holding us back, and I said it multiple times, the only thing really holding us back from going back to all-time highs is a very, very clear roadmap to full self-driving, to mission complete, to now believability. So today, Elon didn't just say it himself. He got two other executives to say, oh, yeah, first or second quarter, we're going
Mhm.
to be there.
Yeah.
So, how in the world do we get, and everything else, as we just talked about, all the other stuff, which is
Yeah.
mind blowing enough, we
Yeah.
should be back. We should be back at 411 tomorrow. I don't think we will be,
Right.
but what's going to hold it back? This is what I've talked about forever, is once we have
Mhm.
that real clarity, even the clarity that Wall Street can see and start to put in their spreadsheet,
Model. Right.
what's going to hold us back from 410?
Um, Yeah, I think we go to 410. The question is how fast. Are we suppressed because of the election uncertainty? An argument against being suppressed by election uncertainty is that um, um, Donald Trump's social media stock has doubled over the doubled from the lows. So in September, it got down to 12, and I
Right.
think now it's at 33, 35 or something like that. DJT, his
Yeah,
initials.
I know. Yeah, it's almost like it's almost like one more betting site.
Market.
Yeah,
Right,
right.
right. So if, so this takes out the uncertainty. We'll totally get clear of that uncertainty, assuming the election win November 5th, right?
Yes,
Because Elon's kind of tied to that.
right.
Um, for some people, so 260, 265, that there's some resistance there,
Very
significant
definitely.
resistance at that level. So getting up to there tomorrow, end of the week, which is, Friday,
Right.
Thursday, Friday, seems very doable. The question is, can we punch through
Yeah.
that?
Mm.
Um, and what would hold us back from that? The overall market's down, like the overall market was kind of down
Yep.
today. So and again, there's still that uncertainty around that stuff. But having a weekly close above 265, that'd be a powerful signal. I could see some big stock players trying to play games with
Mm.
it, trying to knock it down to
Right.
like try and force people out of positions and then get back in. But um, some big players will want to get in. Certainly, Dan Ives will be singing the praises of this,
Right.
talking about how this is the whatever the adult in the room kind of thing, the guidance, epic whatever call, all that kind of stuff. And even Gary Black was saying how it was an immaculate um, earnings, and then the call was good. So there's no
Oh, I didn't see
Um,
Gary Black's comments. Okay, good.
yeah,
Okay,
yeah. So he said it was immaculate. He expect other people, other analysts to
it goes immaculate. Mhm.
operate, give set new targets tomorrow.
Uh,
Um,
oh,
so, because
yeah, well,
even
you're
just
going to
on the
set.
20%.
Well, yeah, you're going to set new targets anyway for the fourth quarter because the
Right,
third quarter changed everything. I
right.
mean, oh my goodness, I really respect AJ. I really respect Larry. I
Yeah,
really respect James Cat. I really respect Alex. I respect all these. I respect all these guys that are trying to come up with. Oh, and Troy Tesla, all trying to come up with the number. And
yeah,
then there's the street, and they were all off by a massive.
20%.
And so now you have to go back, you have to redo everything. I
Right,
mean,
right,
everything just changed.
right, right. And so then the question of like how good is the Q4? Definitely should get over 500,000, a psychological number in terms of number of cars.
It's also the number of energy store, number of megapacks that get sold. It's not
Right,
just the number of cars now, it's the number of megapacks that get sold.
right,
It's gonna be above second quarter
right.
with
But they
margin.
did not change the deck to say that, so they said the FSD had impact, but they didn't say like how many,
Yeah, I
right?
know. Oh,
So again, it's tough for them to model, right?
yeah,
Like I have the assumption that if I have a better than human driver car next year,
yeah, yeah.
that at least that means average human level driver, it may be even better than the best human level driver,
Right, right.
then you should have half or more of the people wanting to get that
Yeah,
vehicle,
it's
right?
been your number all along. Yeah.
Right. So the FSD take rate should progress by middle of next year to that number. And by the end of the year, if you're 1,000 times better, you're like 10 times better
And a human.
than the regular human driver. And if you're gonna upgrade the chips to like, okay, we're not gonna be held back just because the hardware is there. Because
Right.
like if I make it better, I'll make more money on it, right? So, but then they may charge. They may say, okay, we'll give it for free to get you to hardware 4 plus level, hardware 5,
Yes,
one
yes,
one free upgrade.
right.
But then after that, okay, now I have to pay. But
Yes,
it's like just to offset our costs,
totally
you know.
makes sense. Yes.
But there's like everyone want to do it because now I can, the whole thing of like the car can last 1 million miles because of all the nothing's wearing up, barely nothing's moving, and then I can just upgrade the brain of the car because the brain of the car is the value of the car. So then it's like yeah. So the other part about that is that because of the upgrades to the chips and everything like that, and where they're going to go and how the money, the clarity you said about the money being made, it's like it's going to keep upgrading. Like for them to everyone to realize how good this will be is a question. Yeah, the analysts probably will want to be more cautious about it and not want to go there right away. Maybe they want to see another quarter
Uh,
where it's like 520,000 come in with really great earnings, come in with the 12 gigawatt hours, 13 gigawatt hours of
Store.
energy, 1.5, and then having a quarter where they go up, like 50%. So instead of 72 cents, go to a buck
Right, right,
in earnings next quarter.
right.
Yeah. But it's seemed like all good news because like
Uh,
so many things can go right.
so the argument I made a while back about, I don't know, 4, 6 months ago, eight, maybe it was a year, I don't know. It's been a very long time. I said the stock should really be at 800
Mhm.
because that 411, 12, whatever it was 3 years ago,
Right.
November.
Right.
3 years ago. The company was a fraction of the size, and yet it was at 400. So, I mean, we're like everything is bigger on every level. New products that weren't even in the pipeline at the time, like, for instance, Optimus wasn't even in the pipeline in
Mhm.
2021.
Mhm.
So, it should be at 800. That's really where it
Right.
should be, Brian. I'm sure that
Right.
makes you happy.
Yes, it will be. But it's like there's so many big announcements that have to happen kind of this time frame. Like it's like in terms of like licensing deals
Yeah.
with other countries, other companies for FSD, the Chinese and European approvals. Again, if things are getting 5 times better every month,
Right.
it's like, the approvals have to come fast. And each time they make that kind of announcement, then the stock will be ripping. So the drumbeat of good news is just starting, like you're saying.
All right, Brian, I knew this would be entertaining to have you
Yes.
on to do the earnings call. And I warned everybody earlier today they should absolutely watch. If you watched this and you thought you were slightly entertained, tell your friends that they should
Mhm.
watch this because maybe they haven't invested in Tesla yet.
Mhm.
Maybe you're trying to talk them into a car, and what you should really be talking them to is getting 100 shares. Maybe that would be the best thing you've ever done for your friend. So, Brian, unless you've got a last
Nope, I'm
bit,
good.
bit of wisdom, all right, then we're going to say goodbye. It's been great talking to you, and thank you, Brian.
Thank you.